The founder, Richard von Coudenhove-Kalergi, is considered the grandfather of the European Union, and the EU anthem and Europe Day were his proposals. But he is not usually mentioned in the list of the EU's founding fathers. Why is this?
Why is that so? Because I think that it is because he can easily be used by those who are trying to develop some conspiration theories for several reasons. First, he was the son of an Austrian diplomat who had married a Japanese when he was a diplomat in Japan at the beginning of this 20th century. And himself, Otto von Richard von Coudenhove-Kalergi, was married 3 times, twice with Jewish women and once only with a Christian. And he was a Freemason, and since the beginning he had been helped by the Freemason because he was a member of a Masonic lodge in Vienna, and there in 1923 he told members of his Masonic lodge that he had an European project to stop and avoid any other world war like the first that had just ended some 5 years earlier and had killed millions of Europeans with no reason at all, because it was a very stupid war, this war. And to avoid that in the future, he thought that a pan-European union should be created. And he asked for some support to the members of his lodge in Vienna. He couldn't help him because Austria was bankrupt after the First World War, completely bankrupt. So, and like Germany paying war damages, very heavy war damages to France and to other countries.
That'll get edited out. Excuse me, sorry, but we just
it's all right.
We just got swarmed by
That's life. And so Germany and Austria were paying very, very expensive war damages. They couldn't help him financially, so they sent him to the American Freemasons, who financed his pan-European movement from the beginning, from 1925 until 1972, when he retired.
They financed for that many years.
Yes, and meanwhile, he had almost succeeded with the Pan-European Union in the 20s, in the year 20s of the 20th century, because he had some very prestigious presidents for each branch of the Pan-European Union, and almost all the countries of Europe. He had either prime ministers, heads of states, or foreign ministers as the presidents of his different branches. For instance, in France it was the famous Aristide Briand, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs. In Austria it was the Prime Minister, Germany also, etc., etc. So he had almost succeeded, but then the crash of 1929 put an end to his success, and shortly after, 4 years later, Adolf Hitler came to power, and Adolf Hitler wanted a European Union, but not the European Union of Coudenhove-Kalergi. He wanted a European Union with Germany as the boss. union, and not based on equality of the nations. So Coudenhove-Kalergi had to take refuge in America. He went to Washington, D.C., and became an aide and a counselor to President Franklin Roosevelt. So you have a man who is a Freemason, who had a Japanese mother, who was married twice to Jewish women, who was working for the OSS, the Organization of Special Services, the organization that gave birth to the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. So here you have a lot of material for the conspiration theorists, and on top of that, himself, he wrote a book he had written a book around 1925, which has never been translated in any other language than German. In German, the title was Praktischer Idealismus, which means in English, practical idealism. And in this Praktischer Idealismus book, he wrote that in order to put an end to nationalism in Europe, mixed marriages should be encouraged, not only between the French and the German or the British, but also with other immigrants from North Africa, etc. So you imagine the subject today with immigration, the immigration issue, and also he wrote that the European aristocracy had been destroyed and had lost their power because of the First World War, and that it ought to be replaced by another aristocracy, and the only one he could imagine was the Jewish aristocracy. So here you have a lot of material for conspiration theories, but it is completely open. This is not hidden. There is no conspiracy, because he wrote all this in his books, and it was published, and it was in the newspapers. But the Eurocrats who are organizing the European publicity and let's say propaganda. It's not a negative word, propaganda. They prefer to favor the memory of some inconspicuous European founder, like the very Roman Catholic Robert Schuman, or the more unconspicuous Jean Monnet. This is, in my opinion, the reason why Count Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi and his Pan-European Union are not so much publicized nowadays. Excuse me for this long answer.
No, and that's a really good point. And some of what's on the internet is it's off the wall, because it's taking something that he stated and just blowing it in such another direction, and it's not what he's actually stated. It's not the information of
yes.
what he had in mind and where they've come with some of these ideas. I don't have a clue. But
he wrote what I told you, but the conspirationists are exaggerated.
Yes, that's a good word. Yes.
Because he didn't write it as clearly as I just said, but it was said and it was written, but it was something. It was more in his mind something like a prophecy than something like a conspiracy. There was no conspiracy. Those things happened, and because they had to happen that way.